going to dedicate this newest episode to Cato CBD. Cato CBD. Cato CBD. Cato CBD. Cato CBD. Cato CBD.
And I'm gonna be high as a fucking man.
And now, the stationary astronaut.
We are hot, drink clink,
Here we go.
ding.
Nice.
Sitting with my favorite artist in the state of Minnesota.
Well, thank you.
I've been working on this one.
Yeah, it's great to finally be able to hook up with you and get this thing going. So you're a busy man.
So are you, though, and that's kind of what held us back. I can be anywhere whenever. I'll get on an airplane to have an interview. You are on another level in regards to these contracts you've built and who you're being contracted by. One that really caught my ear was a piece you did down in, I believe, Universal Studios.
Yep, down at Walt Disney World. Yep.
How the hell did you pull that off, Shawn?
Well, it's many years of in the making, and it's one of those things that. When you first start out your career, it's just you have to build that confidence and build the clientele and let your work speak for itself. And thankfully, over the last 15 years that I've been doing this, my name and brand has gotten out there. And so now it's, people are contacting me that I never in my wildest dreams would ever believe I'd be able to work with. So. And like the Epcot Center project was the same way. It's just like, you got to be kidding me. I'm going to be, doing some street art underneath the monorail at Epcot. And it just, you don't think that that's ever going to happen. So
I got in touch with you because one of my friends from Mankato, I wanted to do a chalk art festival in Rochester. And they said, there's this dude you need to talk to. I didn't know you from Adam. And I certainly didn't know your resume. I soon found that out. And then I start looking at your work, and I'm just enthralled because we started, and you and I talked about the three-dimensional imaging that you can do on chalk and that you can do on walls. That takes it to a whole nother level. Were you always a third-dimensional artist, or did it just start drawing stick figures in fourth grade?
Well, I've always doodled as a kid, and it was one of those things that I knew that I needed to be an artist. I didn't know what that meant. And I grew up in a small town in North Dakota, and so there wasn't really a whole lot of influence. About the only thing that art-related happened up there was people would draw, like the geese, landscapes of flying over water and stuff like that. And so that was what I was kind of raised on. And then I came to Minneapolis, and my mind was blown with all of the different things, going to the Minneapolis College of Art and Design, and being on the same block as the MIA, and seeing art from all over the world and all the cultures from all over the world that the Twin Cities had. And so I went into art school, became an illustrator, started illustrating books, started illustrating magazines, and then completely fell into the street art by accident. And it was all because I was crazy to accept a challenge from somebody who had seen one of my paintings and asked if I could try and recreate that in chalk on the sidewalk. And that started my whole career just by saying yes to that. And so it's something that I'm thankful that I took that risk, because I flat out told them, I said, I don't think it's going to turn out. And they're like, that's okay. We just need somebody out there to do it.
How do you feel about the street art renaissance that we are embarking on right now? All cities now understand they need to have wall murals.
Well, I think it's amazing because if you think about it, city walls, buildings, public spaces, it's like your living room for the community. And so you decorate your own house. You live in your own house. You live in your own community. Why wouldn't we decorate and make our communities better looking and better to live in? And art is one of the first aspects of turning a community around. And you look at like the Wynwood district of Miami, how decrepit it was before the Wynwood walls and the murals happened. And now it's everybody flies in to go see them. And so it's the same with, it doesn't matter if it's a small town, a large town, when you start bringing in culture and the arts and beautifying your neighborhoods and your communities, that's when you really start to realize you have your own space to be in and make it the best it can be.
I read in a book, it was so interesting, and it stuck out like a sore thumb, because all communities are based on art. And it might not be the art we think of. it might be the cornerstone to a church that turns into a sacred geometry mecca. And good art is, I think, based on geometry, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it definitely can be.
You know, and like it's appealing to me. It draws me in as a viewer, where it's so perfect. I know that there's math there, whether the artist even knows there's math going on. And it was so interesting in regards to how they pointed out what art does to communities. And yes, it does bring us together. Yes, it does allow for a vision to take place. But at the same time, what it does to our heart and how it soothes us is something that it brings us together more so than anything. That really kind of stuck out to me, because my friends who are artists, that is their end game goal. I just want to bring people together. And I think that's probably what drew me to you as well, is you're literally bringing people together on top of having live art.
Absolutely. It's when you can celebrate what's within your community and then bring other elements from outside of it into it. It elevates everything to what you're doing. And the festivals are amazing, because with the chalk artists that we bring in for these events, we're bringing in world-class artists from all over the world that you can't see unless they either fly here or you go see them where they're at. And it also encourages the local artists who might not have seen that, and to learn and explore and see that the world is such a small place right now. And in a matter of 20 hours, you can be anywhere in the world you want to be. And so by having these events, you are opening up that community element. And like this weekend at Chalk Fest, everybody will come out, families and old people, young people, and they will be able to participate. They will be able to get their hands dirty, and then also see what can be done on the top of the stage with these artists. And so it really like expands, and it doesn't necessarily have to make them a chalk artist or an artist in general, but it gets their creative juices flowing. And in so many careers and jobs and things we do in our life, there's a creative element that if people would allow themselves to unlock that a little bit more. For some reason, it seems like once we hit like third or fourth grade, people like instantly like either accept they can draw, or they just close that off and say, I can't draw, and forget about it. And if you allow yourself to really just let loose, not worry about if the piece that you're working on or what you're doodling or whatnot is good, just let that process happen, because that's where you can start unlocking those type of things. And some of the best interactions have been with corporate America, believe it or not, because there'll be times where I go into an organization that has a bunch of suits and people who are, constantly on a stressful level, and you bring something in that is completely out of their ordinary, whether it's painting or chalking or being creative of some sort. And all of a sudden, something connects, and they take that back and utilize it in their everyday life for their business, even though they're not going to pick up a chalk stick in the boardroom, but they can see the creative process that working together, completing something in a different way and thinking differently can influence how they interact with other things.
Do you think there's competition in art?
Absolutely. I mean, any profession, there's going to be some competition, because for us that do it full time, the competition is finding the projects that help us keep our bills paid. And so every wall has multiple artists that are being considered for it. Festivals have numerous artists that they're bringing in. So there is a little bit of competition to it. And most of it's a good thing, because you see somebody creating something that's better than what you're creating. You want to create something better than what they're creating. And so it helps you to just kind of keep pushing yourself and pushing the boundaries. Sometimes that can get to be a little bit too much, and people take it too far. And as with anything, there's always some that it becomes cutthroat, and they'll do anything they can to accomplish what they feel is worthy. But when you work as a whole to better a movement or a way of being or an art form, it only gets better. And with these chalk festivals, the chalk family and the street painting family that has evolved, we're all supportive of each other. We're all excited when something good happens, and overall, it brings the whole community up. And so it's something that is really fun to see.
It doesn't mean you can't all be Olympians with one another, but there has to be, that's why I asked, because there has to be competition. And it doesn't have to be the black or white competition where it's kind of gets cutthroaty, but no, we have to be trying to one-up one another. where it's what brings the best art out of a vessel, is this idea where, wow, I love how Shawn shades. I'm going to try to extrapolate that and even do a better job, or whatever the example may be. And that's kind of what gets me so confused with some local artists where, no, man, I just want to I want to get paid for my art, but no, this isn't a competition. It's all love, man. It's like, okay, I kind of see where you're coming from, but are you trying to personally create the best art you possibly can? And your product shows, and you're still, a kindergartner can make that art. You know what I'm saying? And it really confuses me because it's like, well, we don't have to treat this like a competition, but it is an unwritten competition.
Yeah. Well, and as much as I'd like to see every artist attain that level of insanity and just get to that level, I think you really want to have to be able to do that. There are artists that I know that are amazing, but that's not their pursuit. That's not what their ultimate goal is. And for them, it's the creative outlet of doing what they're doing that allows them to be in that happy state. And that's awesome. It's if you can be in that contentment of what you're creating. But for the rest of us that are kind of trying to do it as a living and trying to get to that next step, it's definitely something that, we want to learn from each other. And it's always a process of how can we make this better? And whether we are working together on projects or working individually and seeing how somebody does something, you always can learn something new. Whether you utilize it in what you do, that's your own choice. And there's a lot of things that my friends do that I could never accomplish. But I've learned how they do it, and I've found ways to incorporate an element of that into what I do. And so it's something that, you have all levels of people in every element of life. And you've got some people that dabble in it that will just occasionally let themselves loose and do that. You've got kind of the amateur artists or people who are interested in it, but they really don't want to make it a career. They don't want it to become a burden. For them, it's just letting it out, letting go with what they do. And if it turns out that way, that's great, because for them, they're happy with it. But when you start getting clients that are paying you to do this kind of stuff and require a certain level, that's where you kind of have to take it to that next thing, because it's something that I can't allow myself to not have that ability to attain that level the client needs. And so it's just something that you just kind of go with it and let it happen.
This is the one right here. I've been waiting to ask you this question. What went through your mind when you saw that Banksy getting shredded by his own frame?
I thought that was a genius move. It was something that obviously it was done with purpose, and I loved the reaction that was with it. And for me, as an artist in the public realm, it's all about how people experience something, and to have something that I don't think anybody in their wildest minds would have ever thought that at an auction like that, you would have a multi-million-dollar painting all of a sudden shred itself, because that was never a possibility. Who would ever do that? What would be the point of that? But for him, it was perfect. It fit what he did. And kind of like last week with he set up shop outside of an Italian village and had the cruise ship stuff just on the sidewalk. And people were just like, you're not allowed to have this. They didn't know who it was at first and all that kind of thing. And so it was kind of a shock that this happened. And so for him, it's or whoever Banksy is, it's something that it's that shock value. And I think in this age of so many things are made to shock us in real life, with TV, with music, with everything, finding something creative and new that hadn't been done before is the ultimate goal for, I think, a lot of people. And that was one that, how are you going to top that?
He's turned it into a show, and the founders of Burning Man, they're the Merry Pranksters.
Yep.
They have meetups in San Francisco where you have to wear pajamas, and we're going to go out on town and be rabble-rousers. But the thing is there's mystique that comes from that, and Banksy obviously takes it to another level because he doesn't he or her doesn't show their face, and
Mm-hmm.
you don't necessarily know who they are, but you know they exist. And you know when they do something that it's got ultimate clout surrounding it.
Absolutely.
It's going to be talked about forever.
Yep.
It's never not going to be talked about. And that's why I think people, you don't have to enjoy it or even consume it, but you have to appreciate the level they are taking it to. You can't even compete with that. It's like the mecca of creativity in regards to how you expel your creativity on a whole nother level. Actually, through the gift shop made me aware of Banksy. And at that time I knew, okay, this is very, mystical. I understand, okay, you're going to be kind of this anonymous artist, which is awesome. But now he or she has me in the art district of LA making sure I take a selfie in front of a Banksy on a wall that doesn't even need to be known that it's there. It's just when you see it, you know it's a Banksy. And that's something that just blows my mind, the level that they're able to take it to in regards to creativity.
Yeah, it's opened up, and it's so great that we live in the age we do, because 50 years ago this wouldn't have been possible, because without social media and without the way news travels now, a lot of the stuff that he does would have just not had the same effect, because there would have been a photograph of the painting shred 50 years ago, but you wouldn't have had the video going around the internet. So it's something that thankfully we've got a lot going on right now that allows for that stuff, and it goes to show that it doesn't matter where in the world you are, you can have an impact on people. You could be sitting in a lawn chair in the middle of North Dakota with the next nearest person 300 miles away, and you can create something that everybody in the world will talk about. And so it opens the doors to so many possibilities when you have artists that create like that and break the boundaries and do things that you would never expect to do. And I think with the street art community, they've finally gained that acknowledgement that what they do has an important role in life, because for the longest time it was considered just juvenile, and it was considered delinquent and graffiti and things like that. And now you've got major campaigns that are happening with all the companies you can think of, and they're seeing the value of what street art can do, whether it's a mural, temporary art, music, any sort of public interaction. That's what people are looking for. And, how often do you get to actually see somebody create and make something? It'd be like going into a studio and watching a musician mix their next tape and CD and song and everything. And with street art, you get to see that happen in the public realm. You get to see the chalk artist create live over the weekend. You get to see a mural going up. You get to see a graffiti artist create something that's just, it blows your mind. And, so it's been absolutely fantastic to see how the communities all around the world have just taken street art to that next level, because they see the beauty in it, and they see it not as the destruction that it once used to be, but how it brings them together.
It turns into its own show. Beyond the finished product, there's a show involved too. And finally, with people's kind of awareness in regards to live art, and then you get to watch it all take shape. We had an event last year, a very big event, and I had a artist on stage, and that became part of the show. And I couldn't have foreseen that it was going to have the impact it had, just because it was a speaking event where it's kind of la-di-da. It's not a comedy show. Obviously, we ended with a comedy show, but it wasn't a musical performance or anything like that. But to have her on the side of the stage painting him live, and people got to, if you're bored there, you get to go over here and watch it take shape over, an hour span. That's magic. And so many compliments came out of that. And that was just something I added on a week prior. I was like, we got DJ D-Mill over here spinning, but he won't be spinning during the talk. So let's have her over here live painting. And then it just shaped up to the point I wake up to it every single morning. And it's so freaking cool to see where I can take that now as a creator, because I'm kind of a glue piece for creators, if that makes sense. My grandma was the town artist in Rochester, had the gallery and things like that. And And it's in my blood, but at the same time, I'm not gifted like yourself. At the same time, I do have the gift of gab. I can bring people together. So like this year with what we're going to do, since I know that was a hit, we're going to 10X the shit out of that, Shawn. Where now I'm bringing in digital designers.
Yep.
Where we're going to have a backlay, and then we're going to have...
Get the 3D mapping going to where it
That's
looks
what
like
we're
the
doing.
walls busting out.
Yeah, so that's what I have, and I don't want to spill the beans yet, but that's what we're doing. We're taking it to another level because I know that is what draws added attention. People might not even come for these doctors we're bringing in or whatever. They might come for the show. And that's what I love is that gets my creative juices flowing. Like, how can I make people's experience even more awesome? Yeah. And I can only imagine, like, I remember how I felt when I saw my first ever chalk art festival, my first time ever staying downtown Denver. And that was so freaking cool, man. I just remember going each block. They all had their own parking space, and I went to each one, and I was just even more in awe. And we got there the end of the day, so I didn't really get to see people doing their work, but at the same time to see it, how it all just took shape, and it took over 2 parking lots, and it was just magical. And then all of a sudden, I meet someone like you. I'm like, damn, Shawn can make this possible here, and he already is. Across the country, do you travel internationally for this?
I have, yeah. I've traveled all over the world, so it's you just never know where you're going to be. Being Colombia, Bogota coming up here in a few months, and so it's something that, like I said, the world is so small right now, and it's a great avenue because you can simply hop on a flight and be in another country in a matter of hours and create, and then you're done. And so it's just, even famous festivals like Coachella and things like that are bringing in street art and elements of that nature to give another level of experience for people, because the music is amazing, but there are downtimes in these festivals, and there are other options that people are listening all day long, and they're looking for something to do outside of that, if they want to step away for a bit. And so there's just so many levels of where street art fits in society and in the communities, and whether it's temporary or permanent or just on the whim. And so it's always fun when you come upon it, because it's usually unexpected, and that's what makes it exciting, because a lot of people don't ever expect to run into a chalk festival or a street artist working on something, and that's just it takes it to a whole nother level.
Even if you're drawing a face, art is still faceless. It doesn't discriminate. And Slug is known for this, bringing the Beat Boy into what they do. And now they have dance competitions at Soundset. Last year's was incredible. I wasn't there this year. I'm sure it was spectacular as well. And it doesn't discriminate. Art can cross-pollinate. Yeah. Music, temporary art, obviously chalk art, things like that, and then dancing, things like that, where it's like, man, even poetry nowadays, it doesn't translate, or it doesn't discriminate. Yeah. It can cross-pollinate, and that's what I love about art is with the internet connecting all of us, we're able to utilize it to our advantage to bring it all together, because that's the new cool thing to do nowadays is throw events. Everyone wants to throw an event. It's how far are you going to take it, though?
Yeah. And how much funding do you have to do it? Mm-hmm. That's the biggest challenge. It's like these events are amazing, but it still takes the people with the insight and the knowledge and the funding to be able to make them happen. Mm-hmm. And most of the time, it's one of those things that once they realize the benefit of it, it's a no-brainer. And so, but when you have an event that's new, that hasn't been done before in a community, it's always a challenge to get it going. And it doesn't matter whether it's a music festival or an art festival or, any sort of activity going on in a community. When something new comes up, there's always a little bit of hesitation. But when you invest in yourself, when you invest in your own community to bring a better quality of life and to bring something of excitement, and it just adds to the overall kind of camaraderie of the community itself. Because with this chalk festival, it's in our 4th year now, we never expected it to grow into what it is today. And it spawned numerous other festivals in the Midwest here through that, because now everybody is like counting down the days till the next chalk festival happens. As soon as it's over, people are like, when's the next one? When can we see this again? Because they realize that it's something they didn't realize they needed, But once it happened, they're like, we want to see this more. And so, and they've become friends with the artists that keep coming back. There's some artists that have been here every single year and have become, good friends with the community. They come back outside of the festival to visit. They come back to, to just do other things. And so all of a sudden you can't sometimes get rid of them. And so it's thankfully my house isn't really big to where it's they can stay for a few days, but after a while they're maybe it's time to go. It's kind of a, small pad. So
yeah, but these artists are finding sponsor families.
Absolutely.
In a nutshell,
absolutely.
you've got two that just flew in downstairs.
Yeah.
Getting things ready.
It's so great to have them here early because as we're sitting here talking, they're out in my backyard prepping and getting things ready that I should be doing myself. But it's they need something to do. They could be sightseeing, but they've been here before, and so I'll put them to work.
As you know, as an event facilitator, it takes a village.
It does,
and we walked right into your village. Thank you for allowing us and making us drink the Kool-Aid because I'm feeling it, man.
Yeah, it's fun. It's something that it just kind of keeps bubbling with more excitement as more people. And, today we only had 2 artists flying. Tomorrow we've got, half a dozen, and then everybody shows up on Friday. And so it's just, you have all of this energy coming in, and when everybody gets together, it's a force. I mean, I might not sleep all weekend long, but I'll never know that I never went to bed because you pick up the excitement and the vibe from everybody. You get to see people you haven't seen for a while. And you have this happening that is only gonna be going on once because we might get together every year, but the same festival is not going to happen every year. There's a different vibe to each one. Sometimes it goes a different direction. Sometimes it goes this way. And so what happens this year is this year's event, and it's a unique thing. And then we celebrate at the end of the weekend with a party and enjoy what was created and then everybody kind of disperses until we run into each other at other random events throughout the country and the world. So it's quite a fascinating way of living because I never imagined, like I said, growing up in a small town in North Dakota, that for something that I used to get yelled at for making a mess on the sidewalk with chalk and just doodling on everything, that I'd get to travel the world and see all sorts of things and meet people and meet new family.
I spray painted a bunch of swords on the back of my mom's shed and got yelled at for it. I had to spend an entire summer sanding the spray paint off, and in between sanding it, I would pee all over it just because I was so pissed off that she was making me sand off my art. So I'd take pee breaks on the same wall I'm sanding. Backlog story. Anyways, when is Shawn McCann going to hit us with a series of children's books?
Well, I've got 30-some books out there right now I've worked on, but I've got my own series of books that I've been kind of percolating in my mind between all the different things that I've encountered with street art in the children's community and all that kind of stuff. And so things are in the works. Don't know exactly when that's going to pop, but it's something that's definitely, to be able to hopefully encourage that next generation. And we're already starting to see that with the chalk festivals that I've been running, seeing those next group of artists, the young students that are just amazing. And there's a student from North Dakota driving all the way down for the festival this weekend that has never been at a festival and is just excited as all can be to be a part of it. And it's things like that something's happening that should be, because when it starts to have that ripple effect, and because you never know what you might do in your life, and this doesn't matter whether you're an artist or in your everyday life, you never know when something you do has that effect on somebody else that takes a whole nother level and changes their life forever. And so for me, there were a couple of street artists I ran into by accident, and they changed my life, and I realized there was a whole nother community. And there have been a couple of artists within the community here that never knew about the street art world. Well, now they do, and now they're traveling, and now they're working on projects. And so it's something that to see that kind of elevation from, not knowing what it could be to seeing those kind of wings spread and grow is amazing.
I was not expecting that answer. I was just throwing it out there. I had no idea you were even considering making a series of children's books. That's dope. Just knowing you're an illustrator, I figured it was probably...
Yeah, I actually have some illustrations done already for them, and they're in some publishers' hands. So I don't know how you read my mind, but it's kind of funny that you mentioned that because I really haven't told anybody. So
well, we're on the same wavelength, brother. It's very interesting because I look at any creative, you start finding other routes to send your art out to the world. And it's very interesting to me that more phenomenal artists don't do more kids' books. Like Jimmy Fallon's doing a freaking kids' book. Might be one of the worst kids' books I've ever owned. And it makes no sense. Illustrations, dog shit in a sense. And it's like, why don't more premier creatives make their own children's books? Because those are going to be the ones that I think will live on forever. Shoot, Dr. Seuss books, we're still consuming them left and right. I still have nostalgia flipping through them for my daughter, and Dr. Seuss is arguably one of the greatest creators of our time.
Yeah, that's why my shelves here in the studio have Dr. Seuss on the top. There's Goosebumps on the shelves, and all the big players that influenced my childhood and still do. And it's and everybody has their calling. It's I was blown away when I had a chance to be at an event with R.L. Stine and to be on the same stage with him and talk to him and ask him like what still inspires him after all these years and hundreds of books. And he just sat there and he's like, you know what? I just love to scare the shit out of kids. And it was like, he's done hundreds of books. That's all he's done. And even after, 40, 50 years, he still gets that same excitement creating a new story that is going to be something that somebody's never read and can elevate that to another level. And so it's a blast when people find their calling and what you can do. And sometimes that changes over the course of your career. I thought I was only going to be an illustrator doing magazines. And of course I was going to do like the Rolling Stones and New York Times and all that kind of stuff. And then children's books, came into play, and that was my calling, but then I was just knocked over the head and put into this street art coma that still hasn't, I'm still, loving and enjoying this 15 years later with everything that has brought up because it is so encompassing in so many different realms. And so it allows for that creativity to go in so many different directions.
Now, we come from the land of the Mayo Clinic, the Med City, and a lot of people make their way down to, I believe you did the Candy Factory mural or the Candy Store mural.
Correct.
That's a big mural.
Yeah, the first one we did last year, Gotham and Beyond, was the size of the Sistine Chapel.
What?
So it's 5,000 square feet. And somehow
you're out there competing with Da Vinci, dog?
No. That's like, Michelangelo is like, nobody will ever top that.
Michelangelo,
and
my
so,
bad.
So it's one of those things that, to have the ability to create on that scale is insane. And the team that was a part of it was just nuts. And almost all of them are part of this chalk festival that we have, and so that are also muralists. But to be able to create that in Jordan, Minnesota, out in the middle of practically a cornfield, and then have it win a huge top art award. It won People's Choice for one of the top public art projects in the world last year, and so it was really fun to see the reception it received. And then this year we went and created another large mural because the owners loved it so much. And so we got another whole ceiling on top of the one we did last year. And so that was launched when they opened up in May. And that was fairy tale themed, which for me, as a children's book illustrator, fairy tales and legends, that's what I absolutely love. And everybody's got tales. They grew up with stories and tales and legends and so it's kind of a dream project, and there's so many. There's one that's potentially in the works that could be a Guinness World Record size. That once that is officially signed on, and it's just to think of what could we do next, what could we take this to is fun, and but until that happens, it's just there's so many possibilities. I keep driving. Every time I drive through a community, all I see is blank canvases, and it's kind of a curse because I'm like, oh, look at that wall, look at that wall, look at that space, that would work. But then you realize, like, well, there's like 40 walls within 3 blocks, and to find the funding to make that happen is never going to happen. So
You got to chill, Shawn. You got to chill. But I was going to ask you, do you ever have time to come back down to earth, being so busy, always having projects in the works? Is it kind of unreasonable to even consider coming back down to earth, or are you just always grounded?
I have an amazing family and amazing friends and people in my life that keep me grounded and keep me humbled. They will let me know if I start to think I have a big head very quickly, which is amazing because it allows me to reach for the stars, but then not become that asshole and push away the people that have made me who I am, because it's something that no matter how successful you are or how big you get, you always need that base to be there for when you need them, because every roller coaster has its downturn. You can't just keep going up, because then you're just going to explode and you're never going to get anywhere. And so it's something that you have to have that solid base. And I think by taking so long through the 15 years, because it was tough the first few years trying to do it. There were numerous times that I wanted to quit and I wanted to just get a regular job and have a steady paycheck and not have to worry, how I'm going to pay my bills. But I trusted the process and trusted, that things will eventually work out how they're supposed to. And sometimes you don't understand, something is put in front of you that is there to be. It's meant to be, and you have to not have that fear of failure, because so many people, I think, they don't get ahead because they're taken by that fear. And they don't want to take that challenge, because for them, if they fail, they feel like they're never going to do it again. And for me, you almost have to fail to get to that next level, because you don't realize what you need to accomplish and need to better yourself in until you get those things. Now, I try not to fail on client projects, things like that. I try and fail in my studio while I'm learning, while I'm with friends, how we're, practicing and playing and just, random things like that. But you have to take that risk, because all the great successes, whether it's Steve Jobs or, Bill Gates or people like that, you have failures in your life, and they happen for a reason, and they usually reset you in a better way. And so you just try not to have too many of them, because then that becomes a lot of work to build yourself back up. But as an artist, you're always learning. You're always searching for that next thing that's going to not only fulfill yourself, but what you can do as an artist. And, you take it to that where it needs to go. And sometimes you're not in control of that. Sometimes it just, you fall, you ride that wave, and where it ends up is who's anybody's guess.
Are we ever even in control? And the best winners are the best losers.
It's true.
Because, and I was asked by my man over here on our way up here, Nick, when did you get good at losing? Well, when I got good at winning. That's the only way you can win, is if you lose. And if people see our wins, they see our home runs. They don't see the hours put in, the loss, the failing forward. They don't see that, and that's okay. Yesterday, I was having a conversation with somebody, and we were talking about the fun part is the journey. Yeah, people see the big smiles after a successful festival or whatever that may be, a successful piece is finished. But the journey, the process is the fun part. I compared it to being an athlete. Yeah, winning championships and things like that and state titles are awesome. They're fun. Those moments are great. But they die down, and that adrenaline fades out. The locker room laughs, the BS scuffles with our coaches, things like that are what strengthened us. That's what bonded us to even make it possible to win. And that's why I love the process and I welcome it so much now. Due to having failed so much prior, I now know what not to do so I can get to where I know I need to be and where I belong. And it's a mind state thing where being okay with being okay. And that's part of the process too. it's my money and I want it now. We're so impatient, especially as a society nowadays. We are so impatient. Accepting that fact, taking a step back, I could only imagine the amount of patience you have to have as a world-renowned and world-class artist. But being able to take a step back and being okay with being okay. Because we were talking about competition earlier on in this podcast. In reality, it's a competition with ourselves on a daily basis, in and out, 24 hours, over 86,000 seconds. It's a competition with ourselves, making the correct decisions. And oftentimes those decisions are just being okay with being okay. Not too high, not too low. The process. The amount of pieces of art you have all over this wall, all over these walls, downstairs filled up, your garage filled up. All over this planet, you have pieces of art, I'm sure. So if we talk about your favorite piece, I'm afraid I won't even get an answer because the time you put into each one, I'm sure they all have a piece of you, but they're all probably your favorite because they came from you. Now, do you even have the ability to answer that, Shawn, what your favorite piece would be?
Well, the good thing is 90% of the stuff that's in my house is not mine. So
oh shit,
it's great because I love to be inspired by those I call friends and family, and some of the artists I've met. And so, majority of the stuff that's in my house is things that, if you look at it as a whole, they don't fit together because it's such an eclectic mix of art and objects. But for me, it's like walking into a room full of friends. Every single piece has a story. Every single piece has a purpose. And for me, it's whether it was on a journey and I met someone and they inspired me to do something different or better myself. And so walking through my house, I'm constantly inspired by the others that I've met and have become friends in my life. I have a few of my pieces, but for me, it's not about what I've created. It's about what I haven't created. And when I decided to finally become a full-time artist, it was a tough decision because I had an amazing job, benefits, steady income. I could have sailed into retirement and been, financially set for the rest of my life. But I didn't want to be on my deathbed and wonder what if. What if I had taken that chance? What if I had tried what I always wanted to do? And for me, if I fail, that's okay because I'm doing it. I'm trying it. And I can always rebuild myself because all of this is just material objects. I'm still going to be the person I am. If I fail, I'm still going to be the same individual. And so it's something that to see the progress of where I've been over the years and the people I've met is kind of like walking through a journey when I walk through my house. And so a favorite piece is usually something that is temporary for me because I found that permanent objects sometimes become lost in your daily life. If you think of a building or a wall that you drive by every single day, you forget about it until a visitor comes into town and says, "Oh my God, I can't believe that artist painted that mural on that wall." Well, in reality, you drive by it every day and don't even pay attention to it. And you open your eyes to what you have in front of you. As an artist that does a lot of ephemeral art form, it is something that really benefits that people know it's going to be there temporarily. They know it's going to be gone. And I think they take it in even more because it is something that if they don't, they'll lose that opportunity and it'll never be back again. And so it's fascinating to look at and think of art that way because most of the stuff that I create that's on canvas or whatever, it's not going to be around in 100 years, 200 years. More than likely, it's going to end up in a landfill at some point because once the people who originally bought it pass away, their kids aren't going to want to deal with it. They're might not have the same connection to it. So, but it's that whole process of just doing it and creating something that's better for who you're with and what you're doing. It's a feeling you can't explain.
It's more emotional than material.
Absolutely. It's about exploring and living that best life you can. How can you, at the end of your life, look back and say, I am proud of what I did? whether it's, accomplishing something you never thought you could, or making a difference in somebody else's life, or whatnot. If you're happy with how you've lived your life and not just gone through the motions, because what's the purpose of living if you're just going through the motions and counting your hours till you're off work, or counting the days till you're retired? It's like you're missing out on everything. And for me, every day is a new adventure. And that's what's exciting about it. So
I'm getting such an insight sitting down with you here today, because I feel spoiled. I'm around artists all the time, and a lot of musicians and things like that. And there's a frame of thought, or a way of thought, that can't be tied down. It's almost like it's never ending. And we talk about the process, where what's next? There is no solidified material good that can ever satisfy this drive that is an artiste.
never. That's what's funny. It's like when I first started illustrating books, all I could think about is, as soon as I get my first book published, life will be good. Never have to worry about it. Got the first book published, son of a bitch, if it wasn't, shit, I got to do another book. And I did another book, and then it didn't fill the void. And then I did an amazing project, and then I did this amazing project. It never fills that void, because it's not about that accomplishment. Because if you stop and you just live on that accomplishment, you're never going to get to that next level. And so it's something that, yes, awards, doing great projects, doing great festivals, they're wonderful. But it's about what's next. What are you creating next? What are you going to make a difference on? What's going to drive you further? And that's something that I never anticipated, because I always thought, like, oh, if I have 10 books under my belt, I am just going to be on Easy Street for the rest of my life. Well, I hit the 10th book, and it's just like, shit, I don't know what to do now. I got to keep going, because obviously it's not Easy Street. It's not like, I can't just sit back and like live on a yacht the rest of my life. And so you get that success behind you, and it further feeds that creativity. And it's in everybody's, background, whether, you're in accounting or in business or whatnot.
Whatever you're putting your hours in.
Yep.
I learned that in Outliers. And then that book is probably what changed my frame of thinking in regards to looking at everybody as a creative vessel. Because I used to think, okay, is it insanity or is it solace? Which one is it? But in reality, it just is. It is how we work towards it. Everyone wants to put in their time in something and get good at something, master something. We get to that point, and then all of a sudden, it just becomes our nature. It's in our DNA. This is what we do. We keep pushing forward. Keep going, more. Because we are a vessel of whatever it is we do.
And it doesn't have to be an object or a thing. It can be mastering yourself.
Yes.
Mastering your mind, mastering who you are as a person. And I think the people forget that. I think they think it has to be something you hold in your hand and something that is physical that you can show somebody. It's not.
Yep.
It's all about who you are as a person and what you're doing in your life to make things happen, whether it's just for yourself or for others or for, your community.
Last year, Jim Carrey was catching so much flack in regards to this newfound perception he has of the world, and I don't think it was newfound at all. I think it had grown, and it had turned into where he is at now. And Jim Carrey is such an interesting individual in regards to he has gotten to that point where he is just a vessel of creativity. Used to be a comedian, was in Living Color, did a buttload of movies, and now he is he hasn't always been this painter we know him as, but he is a phenomenal artist, and he's letting his creativity shine. And he's been looked at as a weirdo. He's been looked at as an outlier or an outcast. And I'm over here sitting back like, this dude has found it. This is his aha moment. And he can't help it that he's letting his thoughts go in regards to speaking to tabloids and being called a weirdo, being made out to be a weirdo. In reality, this guy has got it. He's figured it out. Did you pay attention to what was going on last year in regards to the tabloids burning Jim Carrey? He's losing his mind. This is why he can't get a girlfriend.
Well, and I think it's all because society in general has a preconceived notion of what you should be, what everybody should be. And for people, I think they were shocked that here you have a successful comedian, a successful movie star who supposedly gave it all up to paint, whether they like it or not. And for creative people, oftentimes just because people seem like they're successful, it might not be what is driving them. Yes, he was making movies, making millions of dollars, but for him, he probably always has been wondering what's next. How can I take this to the next level? Because he might have just been doing it because that was his way of getting a paycheck. And now he's able to use that success that he had and really do what he's always wanted to do. And for him, that's something that's what is amazing, is because he has that ability. Not everybody does. And whether or not you agree with him, I applaud his effort to do what he needs to do, because as a human being, we don't have to answer to anybody else. People might think that we do, but I'm not responsible to my neighbors. I'm not responsible. I don't have to live up to their perception of what I should be as an artist, because they're not living my life. I'm not living their life. And so sometimes creative people get that flack because they might be doing something that the general public doesn't accept at the time or the moment. But you still have to do it. And sometimes you can't control that. Sometimes it just has to come out. And so it's something, it's great to see. And I think if you were to actually look at people in the creative industries, whether it's movies, music, TV, all the different realms, creativity exists in so many different forms with a lot of those artists that they might be pigeonholed as a TV star or a movie star or a musician, but their creativity has no limits. They work in so many different avenues, you might just never know it, because they keep their public perception as to, well, I have to be known as a musician. I don't need to be known as a painter. But when I'm home, when I'm not creating music, when I'm not on the road, I'm painting, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm landscaping. It doesn't matter what it is. They can take that same energy and utilize it in another aspect.
Creativity has no faces.
Exactly.
It doesn't discriminate. This wouldn't be a Stationary Astronaut podcast if I didn't ask you about psychedelics. Whether it be plant medicine, experience with LSD. Have you ever had any experience with the world of psychedelia?
Not in those realms, but in realms of kind of that euphoric high you get sometimes with when you're taking your art to a whole nother level. And sometimes, scotch or beer or something like that is, inhibitors to doing that, or you get lost in music and you're just like, you lose all track of time. You don't know what day it is. You don't know what's going on. I myself haven't gone into, the psychedelic drugs or anything like that, because I just haven't needed to, because for me, it's like art itself is a drug. And I get that euphoric high just creating and being in my space and just losing all connection with reality. And so it would be interesting to see what would happen if that did ever happen. So I'd probably have some people wondering what's going on, so running down the street or whatnot. So
why would you say that?
I don't know.
Running down the street? You're not going to be a mobile astronaut.
Well, you never know. I create in the street. I'd probably be finding my next street to work on. So I'd probably be looking for that next space. And I'd probably be like searching for that, what I'm going to do next. So
psychedelic virgins, the best ones are the creative types, the extremely creative types, because it's almost like you get to break a seal when you're already established as a creative. not pre, but you're already, your momentum's moving in the right direction, obviously. That's the coolest part about it, is you can kind of always tell. Like Jim Carrey definitely flew to the jungle and drank ayahuasca. James Cameron he was making all these films, and then all of a sudden he wants to create Avatar, so him and his executive producers fly down to the jungle, and then voila, Avatar.
Yep.
That is what I love about creators, is when they do tap into the world, then it just like, whoa, before you know, it's like Pandora's box of creativity. Obviously, I already know you have exponential potential within your mind, but if you ever, and I'm going to say this on the record, if you ever decide, shout out to Oakland today too, they decriminalized all ethnopharmacological plant medicines. They just decriminalized everything. So that goes to show where the momentum's moving.
Yep.
If you ever decide to hop into that realm, I'm taking you there.
Sounds good.
You promise?
Promise.
I'm gonna cut your finger and we're gonna blood promise that shit.
Well, maybe we need to like do a festival around this. So
yes, that's actually something we will talk about, because you and I are talking about something in the future as well. I'm really excited where we can take this relationship, Shawn, because our paths have never crossed, but I've been aware of you. And I have friends who I am making aware of you, my friends who are some of my creators, where I'm like, no, you need to get in touch with Shawn McCann. And my boy Luke Austin, I believe, just got a hold of you a couple weeks ago. He's my tattoo artist and also doing some of our graphic design. And it's something where I'm kind of using you as a pillar, if that makes sense, where Luke, for instance, is doing murals all over our city now. And it's like, bro, you need to tap into Shawn and his network, because it is no longer the 6 degrees of separation with the internet. It is now, I introduce you to this guy and you guys make magic happen.
Well, it was something that when we first connected, it felt like I knew you somehow. It was very odd, and there have been numerous times where this has happened, where I'll get together with like a musician friend or people like that, and people assume that we've been best of friends for 25 years, and in reality, we've maybe seen each other like 4 or 5 times. And I think the universe finds those people that are meant for you to be connected with, because there have just been way too many things that have happened recently where you just shake your head and you're just like, why is this going on? You don't know what is happening, and you don't know why this person was dropped in your lap, but they were. And it's just, it's a great feeling, because it does go to show you that you can't ever underestimate fate, because things happen for a reason, and you meet people all over the place for a reason. And if you keep an eye out for this, you will definitely you will go places you never expected, because it's the people who have blinders on that miss all of those signs.
I'm laughing so hard right now, and the hair is sticking out on my arm. My eyes are watering. Dominique and I were driving down your street, and we were talking about how dude, he's like, you and I would always just end up in the same place. When we were already talking about something, we would just randomly end up somewhere. And we're talking about universal connection, where we probably know each other on a different playing field, on a different plane of existence. And when we accept it and we allow it, I live on a fate basis. I have since like 2007 probably, where it was just, I follow my gut and I just let it take me places. It's brought me internationally places. I just do it. And I don't know why I do it, but I get on a plane and I go. And then I meet people, and before I know it, I'm with the lead water guy for Avatar and Pixar, and you know what I'm saying? And now he's doing some of our creative for Where the Minds Meet, and it's like, I've known him since 2015. How are we still connected? Why did he reach out to me at this time saying, hey, bro, do you need like a digital creator or anything for anything you're doing? It's like, how the fuck did you know I was thinking about that yesterday? Things like that, where it goes, and we allow it, and we run with it. The first time you and I talked, we talked for a while, It was when you were working on the candy store mural, I believe, is when we had our first conference call. Yep. And it was almost like I felt the same thing where I remember the day, it was kind of like a rainy type day. And I was like, this dude, I feel like I've known him forever. Like we've been connected. And who knows if it's a astral tether that has kept us together. But no matter what, I'm not going to try to explain it. It's the fact that we are allowing it. And I accept it. And I want to make magic happen out of it. I didn't know you did children's books. I didn't know you were an illustrator. I had no idea. But now my wheel is spinning to the point we need to get off this fucking podcast so we can go eat some lunch and actually talk about stuff. Because I've kind of I've quit divulging too much on the show in regards to future plans and things that that we all might be working on, just because it's like, spoiler alert, what's the fucking point? I might as well tell you what happened in Game of Thrones too, you know?
Yep.
So yeah, here we are. Your beer's gone, my beer's gone. I appreciate you so much, Shawn. This weekend, give us the breakdown, time, place, and everything. That way I can get this released and people can know where to go.
Yeah, it's in Maple Grove, Minnesota. It's Chalkfest at Arbor Lakes. It's going to be on Main Street, which is near the Crave, Schuler Shoes, Clad Irish Pub. We have 3 whole blocks, bringing in 60 artists from around the world and a lot of amateurs. The festival runs 10 to 5 each day. The artists will be out there probably starting around 7:38 and just creating like mad. And it's going to be a great family fun event. We've got mandalas that kids and families can join in on and help create and color and be a part of. There's student squares if they want to sign up and be a part of that. And overall, it's just bringing the community together, really celebrating what life is about and just taking the moment for itself and enjoying the beauty that is created and having fun with it. So hopefully we'll have great weather and amazing crowds and have a great time.
Saturday, Sunday, 10 to 5?
Saturday, Sunday, 10 to 5.
Where can people find your Instagram and your Facebook?
Instagram is at shawn.arts, SHAWN.ARTS. And on Facebook, you can just look under Shawn McCann, SHAWN, and my website is just my name, so ShawnMcCann.com.
Shawn, I love you long time. Appreciate you, brother. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks. It was great being here.